All right, let's get down to the nitty and gritty, man. We're gonna be talking about my Western Conference Finals predictions between the OKC Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, man, listen. Before we get into that, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that comment section below if you're a T-Wolves fan, Ant-Man fan, whatever. If you're an OKC Thunder fan, Shea Alexander fan, hit that comment section below. Let me know who y'all got winning this series and ultimately advancing to the NBA Finals. And let's get right into it, man. So, really, I've been having conversation with a few people, with my brother, another one of my close friends, two other of my close friends. I asked him a question. I felt like, watching this series against the OKC Thunder, I was, after watching the series from the OKC Thunder and Denver Nuggets, my predictions, I'm gonna give y'all my predictions, man. In Western Conference Finals, OKC versus Minnesota Timberwolves. I got the Minnesota Timberwolves in 6. Now I'm gonna say this: the reason is why is like it's really not based on what the Timberwolves did in this postseason run. And I know I had conversations with a lot of guys, and they would bring it up. You can't really judge the Timberwolves what they did because who they faced in the first round, they didn't really play. Who they played in the playoffs really ain't had no center, or who had the same level of defense intensity that the OKC Thunder had or have, which I completely agree with and things like that. But what people fail to understand is that I didn't really base what I seen from the Timberwolves. I didn't really base off my predictions in the Western Conference Final between the Timberwolves and OKC Thunder based on what I seen from the Timberwolves. It really was based on what I seen in this series between Denver and OKC, what really made me lean towards the Minnesota Timberwolves. And what I mean by that, let me dive a little bit deeper. And what I mean by that is that the Denver Nuggets, they took the OKC Thunder into 7 games. And when you look at it, for the most part, Denver Nuggets was really playing the OKC Thunder 3v5. Because you look at Nikola Jokic, you look at Jamal Murray, then you want to look at, Aaron Gordon. Christian Brown, they was living with him shooting. Michael Porter Jr., I ain't got to say too much about him. 5 out of 7 games, he scored under 8 points in the series. In the other game, in game 6, he only gave him 10 points. So, regardless, they were really playing, in some lineups, they were playing 2v5, because you got lineups with Nikola Jokic, not in the game, he on the bench. You got Westbrook, Peyton Watson, Michael Porter Jr. out there, Jamal Murray. It wasn't, you know what I'm saying? It was just, and I look at that. So, for the most part, Denver Nuggets, they playing 3v5 and things like that. They was able to load up on Nikola Jokic. And, the way the Denver Nuggets system is, it's equipped for Nikola Jokic to be able to play through him. It's catered, the Denver Nuggets scheme is catered to Nikola Jokic. So, anything is, if they not playing off Nikola Jokic, who else can be able to get their shot outside of Jamal Murray, via live dribble? And that's really where I was looking at. It was like, okay, I'm looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves. They got Mike Conley, who I feel like can be somebody off the dribble via live dribble. He can attack a closeout. He can make the defense play if they try to overcommit or do too much or overhelp on Anthony Edwards' drive and things like that. You got Jay McDaniel, who can be able to be somebody off the dribble, who can be able to attack a closeout and create his own shot or create offense for others. Dante DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Julius Randle, Naz Reid. These are guys who can be able to put the ball on the floor and also create their own shot and also create shots for others. When you look at the Denver Nuggets, they don't really have nobody outside of Jamal Murray. Hence why they really had so much trouble. Jamal Murray was so gassed in this series because he was the only ball handler that can be able to make decisions. As you see, a lot of times, Nikola Jokic would take the ball out the net and inbounce the ball to Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Russell Westbrook, and things like that, and they'll pass it right back to him. And I ain't got to bring up Michael Porter Jr. because he was useless. But that was just one thing. Then when you look at it, when you on the defensive side, like I said, the Denver Nuggets, they forced the OKC Thunder into 7 games, and with the type of defensive scheme that was able to take a lot of things away. But one thing that I noticed that Denver Nuggets, they went zone, and they was able to obviously, somewhat kind of take their driving lanes away and things like that to make it a little bit harder and force them to make threes and make outside shots, which you know, in the scheme, that's cool because you got to give some up. If you ain't gonna be able to stop, if you can't stop everything, you got to be able to stop one thing. So they'll be able to contain the drop lanes, and they was living with them, knocking down perimeter shots and hitting open threes. But with the thing, what I'm saying is that the Minnesota Timberwolves, how everybody rave about the OKC Thunder defense, people seem to forget that the Minnesota Timberwolves defense is just as good as the OKC Thunders. You know, they got Jay McDaniels, they got Anthony Edwards, you know, they got Rudy Gobert at that back line. Mike Conley no slouch on the defensive side of the ball. So they got size and length, and where they can be able to guard straight up, where they don't have to sacrifice so much and just leaving guys open, or just, you know, leaving guys shooting threes or doing this and that, or throw all these different, you know, zones and looks at the OKC Thunder, where they can just be able to man up and leave Jay McDaniels on the island, or leave Anthony Edwards on the island against Jalen Williams, where they just don't have to overhelp or overcommit. You know, leave guys open, which that free up opportunities for, you know, back cuts. That free up opportunities for guys to get in rhythm. They'll open up opportunities for second chance rebounds and things like that. That's another thing. I feel like the Minnesota Timberwolves is a better rebounding team that the Denver Nuggets displayed in the series against OKC versus the Denver Nuggets in that series. You know, when you look at it from an offensive defensive standpoint, and why I'm saying this is like, the thing is, I think the Minnesota Timberwolves pose a more deeper threat than the Denver Nuggets did on both sides of the ball. Because obviously they don't. My brother, now I talked to my brother about it. He was like, they don't have a Nikola Jokic. They don't have, then when you try to like Nikola Jokic, Anthony Edwards, that was the watch. Okay, cool. But when you look at the second option for the Minnesota Timberwolves and the second option for Denver Nuggets, he was like, the Minnesota Timberwolves don't have the same level of creator that's equivalent to Jamal Murray. I was like, okay, that's true. But the thing is, they have more creators going down the line when you look at it. Like I said, they weren't trust Christian Brown when he was trusting himself. Peyton Watson, Russell Westbrook, Michael Porter Jr. I would rather Julius Randle, Mike Conley, Jay McDaniels, Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo, you know, living and making, creating opportunities for his teammates or via himself, you know, to get his own shot versus what those guys were doing. And they showed they was more capable off a live dribble. It's the reason that when they face in the regular season, they split the season matchup 2-2 in the 4 games that they played against each other in the regular season matchup. And the thing I be wanting to say about this, the OKC Thunder, they showed you that they can play in close games, they can play in mucked up games. You know, they can win in a defensive game, they can win, you know, offensive game, they can play in transition, things like that. But in the grand scheme of things, they is a drive and kick offensive team. They don't really have run sets. And I was trying to tell somebody, it's like, once the team show you who they is, you gotta believe them. It's not just now all of a sudden after they get to the Western Conference Finals that they gonna change what got them here, or they gonna change something up because they feel the need to. No, I said it's not just the playoffs. We got 82 games worth of film on the OKC Thunder, and he was trying to tell me like, well, you know, the playoffs and the regular season, 2 different seasons and things like that. Yes, which I totally agree. But the thing is, still, once a team already showed you who they is, you gotta believe them. We haven't seen, you know, OKC do anything else other than, you know, really rely on Shea or Jalen Williams, you know, to create one-on-one. And, you know, them being so good offensively, you have no choice but to try to double, you know, commit and throw extra bodies at them, which gonna leave opportunities for the Luke Dorts, for the Alex Caruso, for the role players around them to be able to get in rhythm and knock down shots. But when you're facing a Minnesota Timberwolves team that just as long as you, that just as athletic as you, that just as youthful as you, and they can run with you, they can be able to jump with you, they can be able to defend and move their feet. You know what I'm saying? Both teams is nick and neck. I'm not saying one team is better than another. Cause when you look at they are both evenly, to me, when you kind of look at it, it's the reason why they went 2-2. But when I said I really so you gotta look at this series from what Denver did and what they was able to do and take this team to a 7-game series. And I look at the Minnesota Timberwolves, that they have more guys that can be able to do more offensively than the Denver Nuggets. A team that's playing 3v5, essentially, when you look at it, in the grand scheme of things, 3v5, 4v5, and depends some lineup 2v5, and they still took a great defensive team to 7 games. Now, obviously, they don't have no Nikola Jokic, but Anthony Edwards, he's no slouch. Julius Randle, a lot of people want to get him flack, and heat. Obviously, he didn't go up against no center or no big man or as big of a team as he finna face in the OKC Thunder. But I just watched him give Draymond that business. Draymond is probably one of the top 3 best defenders that we done had in the NBA, in NBA history, and he was fooled. So y'all mean to tell me Chet, who not even just is physically imposing as Draymond Green is on the defensive side of the ball? Now Chet, he just as good at defending the rim, yes. But I'm saying on the perimeter, and if he get the physical enough body on him up, Chet he gonna have his hands full. He gonna be in foul trouble. He ain't gonna know what to do because he's not physically strong enough to be able to deal with Julius Randle, as physical as this series is gonna be. And that's what I'm saying. When you look at it, and I'm just saying, all I did was I looked at this series and I watched how long this series went, and I watched this series with a very close eye. And I knew when I seen Minnesota advance to the Western Conference Finals, and you look at this series, okay, and I'm looking at how the Denver Nuggets will be able to, match up with the Timberwolves. I'm looking at how OKC will be able to match up with the Timberwolves. And yes, the Thunder match up better because how good they are defensively. And a good compelling argument that one of these persons had with me is that, on the defensive side of the ball for the OKC Thunder, as turnover prone as the Minnesota Timberwolves is, that can lead to, problems for the Minnesota Timberwolves, in which I agree on. But the thing is, a lot of people like I said before, people tend to forget that how good Minnesota is defensively. You know what I'm saying? So that's how we gotta look. That's how I look at it, bro. It's just like I look at this series and I'm looking at Denver Nuggets compared to Denver Nuggets defense and Minnesota defense. You got rim protection where you don't have to give up nothing at the rim. You got better perimeter defense where you don't have to run a zone to keep guys in front of you and keep guys from attacking the paint and keep guys from getting 2 feet in the paint. Not saying that OKC won't get 2 feet in the paint, because who gonna go a whole series not getting 2 feet in the paint, getting to the line and doing things like that. But I'm saying you don't have to sacrifice so much where you just giving up open looks after open looks after open looks from the 3-point line. Instead, via where you can just play them man up, straight up, and force them to make tough shots against contest. That's how I feel, bro. Then you look at our offensive side. Like I said, if it wasn't an entry pass to Nikola Jokic, who was you really trusting outside of Jamal Murray to really create some type of offense and put the ball in the basket? And that's what I'm saying. Offensively, defensively, the Minnesota Timberwolves match up way better than the Denver Nuggets did to the OKC Thunder. Then when you look at it, like I said, OKC, they haven't showed me that they can be able to run something different to be able to make the game easier than what is, to make it easier on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, to make it on J-Dub. I just seen J-Dub just get put in hell by the Denver Nuggets, who's not even on the same defensive level as the Minnesota Timberwolves. And who knows? Who knows? He might have a bounce-back series, might have a career series. You never know. But I don't know. Them are my reasons. I just feel like Minnesota a better defensive team. Head and shoulder better defensive team. I feel like they got more guys that can be able to, put pressure on the rim. Put pressure on the OKC Thunder defense, opposed to the, Denver Nuggets, where you just really have to worry about, the Denver Nuggets. All you had to really worry about was Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Aaron Gordon somewhat. But what I'm saying, like the Denver Nuggets, they often was so catered around. You have to get an entry pass to Jokic, where like OKC was able to load up on Jokic and bring extra bodies and do all that. And when I see him from Julius Randle, he's been able to take his game to another level really throughout this whole season, playmaking, ball wise, and so I really trust in him to show me a different level and a different aspect to what Minnesota Timberwolves really haven't had in recent years, and just to show everybody that Julius Randle, he's not the same player that he was in New York. He's years removed from all that, and he's showing you on this playoff run is that he's capable and he's a different player. He got it on his mind. Anthony Edwards, he's a man on his mission. I really like Minnesota in 6. You know, obviously I can definitely see it going to 7-game series, but I really like it going 6 games because when you look at the Denver Nuggets, they had opportunity to close this game out in games 4 and 5 where they could have been won this series. You know, they was up double digits going into the fourth quarter and had double digit leads into the fourth quarter, but ultimately, you know, they couldn't make shots. Like I said, they were playing 3-on-5. They had guys who couldn't put the ball in the basket. Rush was terrible. Michael Porter Jr. was terrible. Peyton Watson, not really an offensive threat. You know, then you get Aaron Gordon, he go down with a hammy. So, you know, Nikola Jokic, he struggled throughout this series. Jamal Murray, he was up and down. So when you really look at it, you know what I'm saying? You was asking for a lot from your key player. You were asking a lot from Jamal Murray. You were asking a lot from Nikola Jokic. You were asking a lot from Aaron Gordon. You know, you asking for Christian Brown. Good thing that Christian Brown, he stepped up and came into his own self in this series, or to be able to give y'all a puncher chance in Game 7. But when I just look at it, you know, in this series, like I said, I'm not looking for what Minnesota did against the Lakers and the Warriors. Even though they won their matchups convincingly and they did what they supposed to do and play who was in front of them. But I'm saying I'm looking at this Denver series, the OKC Thunder series, and I seen how Denver was able to, you know, make it hard and monk the game up. And they's not nowhere as good defensively at the rim or defending the rim or guarding the perimeter as good as the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then you look at the offense side of the ball. Of course, they don't have a Nikola Jokic. No, but they got multiple guys that can be able to, you know, make a read, make a play with a live dribble. You know, where Caruso ain't just doubling down on Anthony Edwards every time or just doubling down on, you know, Julius Randle. No, you got guys that can be able to hurt you if you do make those same mistakes that you did against the Denver Nuggets. You know, so that's just how I feel. You know, obviously, you know, OKC, they can do a lot of things well too. Where they can, like I said, they can be able to turn Minnesota Timberwolves over, which the Timberwolves showed you. They can be careless with the ball and things like that. That is true. You know, things like that. But outside of that, outside of SGA going to get 30 plus points, how else do you see the OKC Thunder beating Timberwolves as good defensively as the Timberwolves is? They a better rebounding team as well, so they're not gonna give up as many offensive second chance points like the Denver Nuggets was as well. That's another underrated aspect, you know. But I don't know. Only time will tell. I think this is gonna be a hell of a series. This is gonna be a good series. Got two young teams, two teams that ain't been there in a while. We got SGA versus Ant-Man, two of the bright young stars in this league, two future faces of this league, you know, per se. And, you know, it's going to be a slugfest, man. I can definitely see it going 7 games. But my predictions is I got Timberwolves winning this in 6 because I think they're a better offensive team. They got more guys that can be able to hurt the OKC Thunder defense, where they won't just be able to, you know, double Ant or just send extra pressure and just overcommit to Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. And I think they way better defensively, where they don't have to sacrifice so much and go and run the zone, where they can just leave guys just one-on-one. They trust James McDaniels on Shea. They trust Ant on J-Dub, where they can just be able to play and leave guys on the island and won't have to give us so much on the back end on recovering defense. And I think they much longer, more athletic. I think they're going to meet the OKC Thunder physicality. And I think they got a better second line of defense. You know, Rudy Gobert being that anchor, the second line, being able to defend the rim at a high level. So that's just how I feel, man. You know, obviously they're going to have to come up and show what they're going to be able to do, put their talk to the talk. But that's how I feel about this series. Obviously, it's going to be a good series. Y'all let me know in the comment section who y'all got winning this series and how many games. And, you know, game 1 is Tuesday. After game 1, y'all know we're going to be right here talking about it, discussing my initial reactions and thoughts and what I seen. Make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button. And I'm going to see y'all Tuesday night after game 1.